The Gospel according to Matthew chapter 5. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you, and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. This is the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. Well, good morning. My name is Eric. I'm not Pastor Melissa. As Jacob, you did the same thing. We are a community that is full of wonderful preachers, and so it's a little bit of a question why I'm up here, but it's good to be here. Thank you for honoring me with this opportunity. So, home. When I say that word, what comes up for you? Home. The variety of the human experience shows us that home, in terms of our families of origin, can be this place we flee from or long for. Spend a lifetime trying to recreate, or a lifetime of healing from. With most folks wrestling with some mixture of memories that are both heartwarming and head-shaking. So I've worked for 2 decades in church camp ministry, and as I say that out loud, it's weird to be able to be alive long enough now to say I've done 2 decades of anything as an adult. But for some kids that have come to church camp, the first day or 2 of camp are filled with missing home. Maybe because it's the first time they've been away, they miss mom or dad. For a few others, the fear of having to go back to home is an even more frightening prospect. Yes, abuse, neglect, addiction, war, famine, systemic violence transform the space that should be called home into a life of negotiating landlines. That is not home. In fact, we score a point of the privilege-o-meter if the word home, in this sense, mostly conjures up feelings of warmth, support, and love. Now that I've got you thinking about setting up your next counseling session, and do it, by the way, do it. The water's warm. But let's now think about what home is for us, right now. When we go on a journey, and people ask, when are you returning home? What place do you think of? Is it the place where you most often lay your head? Is it the people that live closest to you? Is it your neighborhood? Is it your city? What makes home, home? We've been on a journey this summer, all of us. Our Sabbath circle, which met at our infant intentional community named Mystic Duplex, represented for our family and household a time of respite and deep connection with familiar and soon-to-be familiar faces. And this happened in the midst of a stressful time for all of us, to and from different jobs, transitioning out of community and forming a new one, grief of the death of Mira's stepfather, Jim, the anger and bewilderment over my former boss being arrested on the charges related to child pornography, coming a little too close to the possibility of bedbugs in our home. Now, I don't talk about these things to give myself an opportunity to keep score in the I've got it going on more than you do game, but instead it has helped to illustrate for me that we are engaging in communitas together. That is what Alan Hirsch and Michael Frost describe as that sweet spot mix of community and liminality. Together, discovering the thin places of risk, danger, close encounters with God, a personal connection with purpose. Through this summer experience, the communities I'm a part of have formed close and tight bonds through some harrowing experiences, and I hope that we have more harrowing experiences ahead of us. For me, the Tuesday 1 week after my boss's arrest was one of those liminal days. It began at 6 a.m. with an over-the-phone prayer and grief-sharing time for the remaining Camp and Retreat staff. I talked on the phone with them because we were still scattering our sites throughout the region. And I talked on the phone while walking through my neighborhood. Tears and fears were shared. And trust was reformed with this group of people who have come to love one another more deeply out of this awful, awful experience. After that time of prayer, I returned to the Mystic Duplex, our weekly morning prayer time, which was being led by Matt Salazar, and he led us in a movement prayer of Tai Chi. And after my work day, we experienced our Sabbath circle in our place. This week was the members of the Mystic Duplex, plus Micah, Stacy, and Eileen, where we got lost in the neighborhood, intentionally seeking discomfort and darkness. I'll come back to that in a second, but the day came full circle with another prayer and conversation time with another camp director. Now, during our pilgrimage practice of getting lost, I chose to get lost in our front yard's miniature grass forest. And it was here that I realized that this place and these people were transforming into home for me. The circumstances that we were all going through weren't ideal or even sustainable, but relationships deepened for having gone through them together. The journey of prayerful and contemplative pilgrimage brought us through grief and stress, have brought us to this place of home. Together, we have found home. And like Jesus walking alongside his disciples toward Emmaus for a long time before they even recognized him, for Mira, Augie, and I, we have spent the better part of 5 years consistently moving around the city where home was actually there all along. Perhaps we have been on pilgrimage this whole time to be able to recognize that. Do you remember that sweet song from 2009 performed by Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros? The song is called Home. I didn't even know that's the name of the band. But I love the song. And the song it goes, home, let me come home. Home is wherever I'm with you. You know that song? And if you don't, you should listen to it later on, because my rendition of it's probably not helping you any. But home is wherever I'm with you. Home is wherever I'm with you, the song says. And the invitation from the author of the book, Soul of a Pilgrim, Christine Paintner, takes it a step further, cutting off the last 2 words of that sentence. Home is wherever I am. A pilgrimage journey can transform our conception of home as the one place where we reside to home as a state of being that resides within us, regardless of place. And I believe that this is actually an act of cultural disobedience, where perpetual dissatisfaction with ourselves provides a fuel for ginormous and thirsty markets. We are encouraged all the time to not feel at home where we are. as Ben was alluding to, this partly explains why re-entry into this way of life is so incomprehensible for people who just experience pilgrimage of any kind. Because they have not just had a wonderful experience, but they have discovered that their home is here. It is utterly simple and full and complete just as it is. And to come back to a worldview that not only degrades the sense of home, self, as already wonderfully made, but exploits the world, its people, and its resources in order to continue this impossible pursuit just seems ludicrous when you come back into it. There is this instantaneous collapse of trying to conjoin the sense of self as home as a result of experiencing a pilgrimage among those who demonstrate the simplest of living, back to a culture where fast food, harvested and overly processed to barely food status by factory farms that raise billions of dollars for investors, prepared and sold by men and women who are severely underpaid, is marketed as something that we deserve. When you come back, when you combine these two things, all you want to do is just scream out, "Ugh! How does this work? How can I make this work?" This is what makes the invitation of redefining home as wherever I am or wherever you are so challenging. But so darn mysterious and Jesus-like. Because Jesus himself finds his disciples scared, bewildered, grieving Jesus' death and alone on the road to Emmaus. It wasn't in the synagogue or temple or even the upper room or any of their houses. But home was found in the retelling of stories, in the sharing their favorite meal together. Jesus, forever bonded with I am, helped them to realize that it didn't depend on the circumstances to be just right, or even a little right. I mean, I'm guessing that having one's spiritual teacher tortured and murdered is not an ideal circumstance. No, home didn't depend on the circumstances for the disciples to experience it. I believe it did take a well-timed interruption from the status quo, a walking pilgrimage with Jesus, for instance, and an ongoing practice of continued awareness, Holy Communion in this case. Pilgrimage and ongoing practice can help us to recognize that we are home no matter where we are. And starting from home is foundational to the work that we do. People of faith who are salty and full of light, who are home where they are, in their neighborhood, at the bedsides of the dying, in our schools, in places ravaged by gun violence, on the front lines of organizing around systemic change. People of faith who are salty and full of light, who are home where they are, can do much to make this world a more hospitable place. So I repeat that question. What would it be like to move through the world, and no matter where you found yourself, to recognize yourself as fully at home?